make sense of all of this information. So one of the things we need to start with is the spacing of the dimensions. In this graphic right here, it talks about that. When we start adding dimensions, and in this case, linear dimensions, what we need to do is the first dimension should not be less than 0.4 inches or 10 millimeters from the very outside of the part. So for instance, let me point that out and repeat. Here's the very outline of this part right now. They're saying that from this outline of the part up to the first dimension line right here, the minimum distance and the minimum spacing is supposed to be 0.4 inches. And that's what we're going to be practicing today. And that's what I'm going to be showing you today. And then the dimension line after that, they say, is a minimum of 1/4 of an inch. Now, personally, I like to not use 1/4 of an inch unless I absolutely have to, because it just feels that it's crowded right there. And so we have the ability to make it bigger if we want to, but the whole idea behind all of this is just to be consistent with it. We don't want our spacing to be all over the place and inconsistent looking. We want it to be, we want it to have unity. We want it to look standardized. So that's why we're going to be really OCD about making this spacing look good. Well, let's go to AutoCAD. And let's start with clicking on a linear dimension from the pull-down menu here. Then what I want you to do is select this upper left corner and then this point to the right. As you start to move your mouse around, you'll notice you should get this extension right here. You should get this little green dotted line, and it left a green little, see how if I hover long enough, it leaves a little green point right there. We want that to be doing that. If your machine is not doing that, if your AutoCAD isn't doing that, then you need to go down here at the bottom and make sure that extension object snap is turned on. So if you could verify that right now, go down and click the arrow next to object snap, make sure it's turned on. And then the next thing you want to do is make sure that this button to the left of the object snap is also turned on. We want to show those snapping reference lines. This is going to help you be very accurate in your work, okay? So once that's all set, then come back, make sure that it's tracking, it to be right above it, and then you want to type in the 0.4. Here you go. You want to type in 0.4 to make sure that that space is 0.4 between. And let me show you how that does it. Distance. So from the outer boundary of the view to the dimension line, this is the entire dimension line, the distance is 0.4, and that's what we want. Okay, so let's repeat. Linear dimension. Now we want to go over here to the right side, and we want to dimension this little step and see how tall it is. Hover temporarily, move your mouse to the right, and you can see that it reads extension, and you type in 0.4 to set the spacing. Okay. You go. Now that we've got those two features of the object dimension, we need to dimension the overall width of the object. Let's pretend this is a front view. And so we need to dimension the overall width of the object from side to side. So here I go, linear dimension again. Then you're going to click the object again up here in the upper left corner. Always click on the object. You don't have to click on the dimension lines. You always click on the object and then click on the object over here. And now notice this is a big deal. We want the distance from this dimension line up to be 0.4 again. And so I'm going to hover where there's only one point right there up. If I start hovering over here, it's going to put a lot of points and it may mess up. So I like to, and if you want to get rid of all those points, just zoom a little bit and it will. I like to hover here on the dimension line and go straight up and type my 0.4 dimension. So let's repeat on the right. We want to dimension the overall height of this object. So we're going to click linear. We're going to click the bottom right, and then we're going to click the top. Move your mouse to the right for the overall height, and then I'm going to hover again on one point on my dimension line, track it out to the right, and then type 0.4 again. Looking good. Oh, so let me repeat something. Notice that on this 280 dimension, it goes all the way over to this corner. So you have to pick linear. You have to pick on the object all the way over there like that. You want that extension line at the top. You need that all the way across. And so then you hover and track it out to the right. Sometimes that's a common misconception that this extension line and this extension line should not cross each other, but it's okay that they do. So always pick on the object where you want to be. Next. So that's how you can add linear dimensions with the correct spacing on your drawings. Let's move to the right, please. Just hold down the wheel on the mouse to pan to get to the next view. We're going to focus primarily on this view over here to the right. We're calling this the front view. Now, where this shows up either in the book or on the PowerPoint is just down here. And so this scenario is where we have cylinders. We have 3 cylinders. And you can see in this view, it looks like a circle. So we got these 3 circles. In this view, you can see kind of the thickness of each cylinder, and we have to dimension all of this for them. Now, we used to put diameter dimensions on all of these circles in this view, but then the new standard came along and said cylinders and other outside diameters. This is an outside diameter, should be dimensioned in their profile or side view. And so this is the side view of these circles, and we need to dimension them with a diameter symbol like these 3 dimensions right here, okay? Then we need to tell them what the thickness of each of these are. And so that's what we're headed towards on this next problem. So let's begin. Linear. And let's start out on the top, and we're going to click this point first. And then we're going to click this point. Make sure it's the end point. Click. Now, this is very important. The dimension standard says that we're going to make our first dimension 0.4 inches minimum from the very outline of the view. So this is the outer boundary of the view, is way up here on this line. And then we track it up, and then we type 0.4. So do that, please. And notice where I'm tracking from. I'm not tracking down below. I have to go to the very outside boundary of the view and type 0.4. It's very, very important that we do that. according to the standard. Let's start the next dimension. Click linear. Click the same starting point over here on the left. Next, we need to click this point. And now you need to move the mouse upward. Now check this out. Remember, the very next location of this dimension line is from this dimension line. And then we track it up, make sure all that green tracking is showing up, and then you're going to type 0.4 again. Now let's make the third dimension linear again. The start point is in the lower left of the view right here. Click the very far point to the right, upper right corner of the view. Hover over your dimension text and grab that dimension line from one point, track it up, and then type in your spacing, which in this case is 0.4. But you notice we're just using 0.4 for now. Sometimes we might have to make these spacings a little bit wide or longer. So they might be a 0.5 or 0.6, but in this demonstration, all of ours are probably going to be a 0.4 spacing. Now, if you'll notice right here on the screen, that 31 dimension text right there, 31 hundredths, 0.31, is too close or crowded to that extension line. And so what we need to do is to modify the text. And what I mean by modify, I just mean we need to move it. And so I'm going to click the dimension. So you do too. Select the dimension one time. And AutoCAD shows us all these grips. But with these grips, we can edit the different parts of the dimension. In this scenario, we're going to left click on the grip for the text one time. Move your mouse over to the middle between the two extension lines and click again. Now you'll notice that we can place the text in between the extension lines just like we did the 88 and the 163. Now AutoCAD will automatically place your text. AutoCAD didn't think that there was enough room for the 0.31 dimension and the arrowheads to be inside. And so that's why it kicked it out to the right. If you think that looks good, leave it there. And it looks good means that the person looking can read that dimension. If you want it to be different, you could pull it over here to the left and you could put it outside as well. So now the text is outside the extension lines and the arrowheads and the dimension lines are outside. There are two right answers to the 0.31 dimension. This is a right answer, and in between is also a right answer for the placement of that dimension, okay? Next, we want to dimension all of our diameters. So we're going to start adding these diameter dimensions using linear first, and then we're going to add the diameter symbol. Because right here it reads, the dimension should be preceded by the diameter symbol, and I'll show you how to do that as well. So here we go. Linear again, please. We're going to start with the shortest dimension, which is this little piece here, this little cylinder. We'll pick those 2 points. Now, watch this. If I type 0.4 now, you'll notice that by the time I add another piece of text, the diameter symbol, this 75 text is going to interfere with that center line, and that would be bad. We don't want that to get in the way. And so instead of 0.4 this time, I'm going to place my dimension, but I'm going to hover from the end point of the center line, and then I'm going to go to the left and I'll type in 0.4. Now I'm going to have plenty of room to add my diameter symbol and not crowd the center line. So once we have that set, double click the 0.75 dimension text. Double click it. And what it does, it takes us to the text editor. And you've seen this in previous assignments. Now, what we want to do, first of all, let's notice this has a purple background to it. This is the dimension that AutoCAD, that the text that AutoCAD put in based on where we picked our 2 points. This number is kind of sacred. We don't ever really want to change that number, because if we ever edit this geometry, then that dimension text should update, and we want it to. But if you change this number either on purpose or accidentally and just type it in, then it's not going to work properly. It's not going to update automatically. So kind of leave that alone, I guess is what I'm saying. Now, you'll see where the flashy bar is on the front side of that text. Let's go up to the top on the ribbon and choose the symbol button. Now, AutoCAD has a cajillion symbols, but what they did for us is they knew that we were going to use diameter a lot, plus or minus and degree, so they pulled those up here for us. So click on diameter, and then you'll notice next to your text in the dimension, it added the diameter symbol for us, okay? Click again, and it'll go away, and then hit escape to get rid of the text editor. So let's repeat that for the next couple of dimensions. Let's go linear. Pick these 2 points. Hover over the dimension line. Track it out. And this time, go ahead and type in 0.4, and let's see what happens. Add the diameter symbol to the 138 dimension. Okay, good. Click on diameter, click out, and then hit escape. Now, what do you notice already? The 138 dimension and the 75 dimension are already interfering with one another. Well, eventually, I'm going to show you how you can move this text around so where it's stacked instead of interfering with one another. Okay, let's go ahead and add the last dimension, though, for this bigger part. We're going to hover over the dimension line. Type in 0.4 again and add the diameter symbol. All right. Now what we want to do is we need to, because nobody could read that. So first of all, even if these dimensions, if you change the spacing and these dimensions aren't overlapping one another, you still want to stagger your numbers because it's more easy to read that way. And so what we're going to do is 2 things. One, I'm going to show you how to stagger the numbers first, and then we're going to change the spacing a little bit. So let's do that. Click on the 138 dimension, please. And now, just like before, we're going to left click on the blue grip of the text, right there in the middle. Click it once, move your mouse upwards. Now, what I like to do is to look and see how far to come up, but I don't want to eyeball it. But if I came up 0.25, that would look pretty good. So I'm going to type it in 0.25 and hit enter. And you'll notice instead of me just eyeballing it, I typed it into an exact location. That way, if I ever have to, I can repeat that and I don't have to eyeball it. Now we have some pretty good eyeballs, but eyeballing dimension spacing is never good because it won't look consistent and uniform. Let's repeat for the 2-inch dimension. Even though we can read everything now, let's do it again. Click on the text for dimension. grab the blue grip, and then move your mouse up and type in 0.5. Enter. And hit escape to deselect. And there you go. Now you can see that we have kind of a consistent stair step as we staggered our dimension text so that everybody can read it very well. Now, another thing you may notice, if not, I'm going to show you, is this. Do you see how that the width of the text is kind of sort of overlapping this text? See how it's kind of doing that? One thing I want you to realize is that that may or may not be a problem. If they can read the dimension okay, then it's probably not a problem. You just don't want it to get too close. But if you did decide that's kind of a problem, you could make this spacing, instead of 0.4, maybe you could go 0.5, 0.5, and maybe it would spread it out a little bit better. So I'm going to show you how you could do that. Ready? You could do it from the very beginning, but you may not see this until you're done. But you can click on the 138 dimension again. This time, click on the grip next to the arrowhead, take it to the left, and then type in 0.1. And what we did, we just increased the spacing from 0.4 to 0.5. Now we're going to increase the spacing of this, because that's way too close now, that 2-inch dimension. So we added 0.1, so we're going to have to, on this one, the 2-inch, we're going to have to put it out to the left 0.2. And now you can see that the spacing's a little bit better. And so, guys, that's just something you kind of have to learn to look for. And that's what I'm going to help you with. You're going to do these drawings and you're going to print them on paper. You're going to bring them to me and we're going to check them together. And I'm going to look at them with you to see if something could look better. There's 3 different levels of dimensioning: good, better, and best. Sometimes there's more than one answer to place a dimension. And then sometimes we have to say, well, it doesn't look good right here, but it might look better over here. And so we're going to manipulate those as we need to. All right. So let's keep going because we're doing great with this. And let's continue with looking at this, okay? So let's zoom out and go to the next activity to the right, and we're going to look at aligned dimension. Let me move my hand over here to the left. Now we have this funny object. Now, so far, we've been using the dimension tool that they gave us, and we've been very aware of making it 0.4 outside of the outer boundary of the view. And sometimes the tracking isn't as straight as we want it to. So I'm going to track this way, and I'm going to type 0.4. Enter. Now, once I did that, I don't really think this space is really 0.4. It looks a little small to me. So what I'm going to do is this. I'm going to choose offset command. I'm going to type in the distance of 0.4. I'm going to select the outside boundary or this outside line and move to the left, and you'll see that even though I typed 0.4 for my dimension, it's really not exactly 0.4. And so what I can do is use that offset command, offset me a line 0.4 away, and then I can click on the dimension, click on the blue grip, and I can move it over and line it up. And I can stretch that to where it's exactly at least 0.4. If you wanted 0.5, you could offset 0.5, and then you could snap your dimension. And so what we could do ahead of time, if we anticipated or knew that, we could offset, put in 0.4, pick this line segment, and now when we click a line dimension, we can click the 2 points where we want our extension lines to be, and then we could come out and we could snap exactly 0.4 away if the tracking isn't working properly. Okay? So that's just another little tip on how to space your dimensions properly. Got to be a minimum of 0.4. Let's move to the next activity. The next little problem is angular dimension. So here we go. All right, let's click angular. It's right below aligned. Now I'm going to ask you to pick specific line segments. So let's pick this left line segment first. And then let's pick this right line segment on the bottom next. As you move your mouse around, you can see that there's different options. I want you to use this option. Hover on the endpoint, move your mouse up and to the left to track it, and then you're going to type your 0.4 dimension. And now you space that 0.4 out. So if it didn't work the first time, do it again. Let me repeat. Dimension, angular. Click, click on the bottom, and now sometimes it wants to flip and flop on the other side, doesn't it? But if you'll hover here, it'll pop down below, and then you can track it and type in 0.4. Now, on everything that we're doing, sometimes when I'm tracking, I might let go of the mouse and it might move a little and you might lose your tracking. So that's something to pay attention to as well. Let's dimension the other one, angular again. And then let's pick the outside line segments, top and bottom. Move your mouse in between those lines and then hover and then move your mouse out to the left and track it and type 0.4. You should get that properly placed. This is practicing with some instructions and direction. I hope it's helping a lot. All right, let's move to the arc length dimension. Now this arc length dimensioning, to me, to get the spacing correct, it's kind of like the align dimensioning where we offset the object first. And so what you could do is you could go ahead and offset. If it's already set to 0.4 the way you want it, hit enter. But then offset these two arcs. Offset it upward and to the left. Offset it over here and just pick. Offset this one on the right downward. Downward. That's where we're going to be placing these two arcs is where we're going to be placing the dimension line. So let's do that. Arc length. This time you just pick the object, which is the arc. And now when you move your cursor around, you can snap exactly on that you offset, and now you have it in the correct position. Repeat that. Pick this arc. Pick the other arc to set your spacing, and then delete your extra arcs. And now you have your dimensions spaced properly. Okay, let's move to the next problem. Here we're going to look at the radius dimension. Now, these two objects are two totally different objects, two different views. They don't have anything to do with each other. But it's just me setting up a little scenario of some things you might face. The easy one is this one. Click radius dimension first. Click this arc. And now move your mouse up and to the left. Now, when we're putting in these radius dimensions or diameter dimensions, They don't want our leader line. This is our leader line, that angle line. They don't want it vertical or horizontal or too close to the, they really prefer it to be somewhere kind of in the middle. You see how I'm kind of in the middle between these 2 points? That's kind of sort of how they want it. Well, Mr. Turner, how do you track it to do the 0.4? You don't with this one. You could you could work really hard to draw a line and get everything so you could snap to it, but we don't have to. It's okay this time to do your best to get it at about a 45-degree angle, because really we have a range. This is about a 30-degree angle from the horizon right here. They don't want it any lower than 30 or any higher than 60. They want it in the range between these 2 points right here. 45 is great, but it doesn't have to be perfect this time. How far out, Mr. Turner? Well, use your best eye. You don't want it way over here unless you have to. You don't want it too close either. So somewhere about right there would be great. And I'm using my trained eye to where I think it should go about right there, okay? And you're going to learn that as you keep practicing these techniques. Now, the next question is this. How many of those arcs are there on this little part? Well, you're right. There's 4 of them. We don't need to put 4 dimensions on each corner. That's not necessary, because we would have a bunch of other dimensions and that would just crowd it and cause problems. So what we're going to do, now you've seen this on other drawings, we're going to add 4x to this dimension. So double click this radius dimension, please. Now, just like before, instead of adding a symbol, we're going to type the number 4, capital X, and then hit the space bar. This is how you properly put in the number of arcs with a radius of 0.50 that we have on that view right there. It's very important that it is to the left. It's very important that it's all caps. And then it says 4x, radius of 50. 1, 2, 3, 4. That's how we do that one. Let's click radius again. Click this arc. Now this one has 2 or 3 correct answers. This would be a correct answer for this radius. We don't want it too close to the corner. We don't want it too vertical or flat down here. And we don't want it too far away. But this would be a good answer for that right there. And with the angles not too steep. And so I'm going to click right there for us, okay? So there's sometimes you have to, some things are just black and white, the way it goes on the screen and on your drawing, but sometimes we have to vary it a little bit, and there's no set thing. And that's what I'm trying to help get in your head. And through this training with dimensioning, please don't worry about making mistakes, because you will, and it'll be okay. Don't worry about, Mr. Turner, I have no idea where to put that dimension. It's okay. Look in your book. Look at this document. It's okay. Now, this is a good location for the radius, because we might have another dimension linear that goes here. And so if we do that, then this dimension can't go down here. See, this is an okay place for that dimension, but the reason it's not okay is because it's crossing over all of this. So we wouldn't want that. But if we had a dimension here instead, let's say we had that dimension, and let's say we had this dimension. Point 4. Uh-oh, now what? Now we've got this leader line. It's crossing over that extension line. So we might have to find another location for this radius. That's not the best position. That's not great. So we might have to pull it way over here and put it right there for us. So you'll see that it's not really overlapping anything and everything's nice and clean. And so there's going to be times where it's not just black and white. You have to think about it, and you have to figure out where's the best place to put this, because it's not working where I want it. okay? So there's some radius dimensions. Look, we only have 3 left, so hang with me, we're almost there. Let's go down to the bottom left and look at diameter, please. Let's look at diameter. Zoom in here. All right, now would you do me a favor, please? Would you join me in move this object, pick everything, right here, enter, and then click somewhere and just bring it down a little bit, about that much. How much? Oh, it doesn't matter, about 0.5 if you want to type it in. We just need a little more room for my demo up here, so here we go. Let's move it down some. Now, click on the diameter dimension first, please. Diameter. We want to select the middle hole. Click on that circle. Now there are probably 3 or 4 right answers on this dimension as well. We could put it right here if we wanted to. The angle of the line looks good. I'm not too close or too far away. This is a good location. Guess what? So is that. That's a good location. Guess what? Down here might be a good location, depending on our other dimensions around the view. This might be a good location. So there's different locations depending on other dimensions and other scenarios. But the scenario I'm going to set up, I'd ask you to put it over here, please. Don't get too close. Don't get too far away. You know, make it look good. Ready and pick, about like that. That's good for now. Now, the other thing that the book talked about was having size dimensions and location dimensions. So this is a size dimension of the part, this is a size dimension of the whole, and this is a size dimension. In order to locate the center point for this whole, we need to have location dimensions. And that's what I'm going to show you, and we're going to add with linear in just a moment. But this is Y right here. Choose linear dimension. Pick the quadrant of this hole right here. Pick the quadrant of that circle. Now pick this endpoint here. What we're really doing is picking somewhere along this line segment that's vertical. We're going to tell them how far that center point is from right to left. Pick right there. Move your mouse up. So we're locating a dimension from the right side of this view to the center point. Now let's place it. Now, we've got a scenario here to where we have to make a decision. If I hover here on the very outline of the view and I go up and type 0.4, do that, I'm going to get a dimension that looks like this. But then later I come in and go, you know what? I need to add a linear dimension for this hole too, and it needs to be from here to here. Well, guess what? Now this spacing isn't good. So erase that dimension. Erase the 2.15 dimension. Choose linear dimension again, and let's put in this dimension first. Click this edge first, and then click the quadrant of the circle. Move your mouse upwards. Now we need this dimension to be 0.4 from this point right there. Now watch out, see that quadrant? Don't want that one. I want it to be from that end point. So let me give you a second to look at that. Okay, we want that to be 0.4 from that point located on the end point. Like that. Let me give you a second to work that out. You need to pause the video, keep going, but that's what we need to do. Now that you have that dimension, let's go ahead and add it on this side. We need the distance from the top line down to the center point again, and we're going to put it over here to the right. So linear again. Pick this edge, which is this edge right here on the top, and then pick the quadrant of the circle. And then your dimension should come out here to the right. I'll help you fix that location of the dimension in a minute. Hover here, track it out to the right, like 0.4. Now I noticed that when I did that, I think it actually tracked from this point at the end of my center point, and I don't really want that. Let me check my dimension. No, it didn't. Let me check this over here. So somehow it went too far for me. So I'm going to erase and start again. Maybe yours worked the first time. That's great if it did. Linear, snap, snap. And now what I need to do is to make sure I'm only, you know what, I could track it from here too. If all those other points are getting in the way, I could track from there and type in 0.4. There you go. Now you're looking and go, wait a minute, Mr. Turner, the 50 dimension is in the it's in the way. It's crossing over lines. You're right, it is. I'll show you how to fix it. Ready? Click on the dimension one time. Click on the blue grip of the text one time. Move your mouse and snap to the midpoint of that dimension line, and it'll place it in its proper location. And that's how you do that. And you're going to have to do that a lot on a lot of our drawings that we do. Now what we need to do is add the location dimension from this edge on the right to this center line right here. So let's do that. Linear quadrant point of this circle to this point over here, that vertical edge. Hover where there's one point of this 50 dimension line right there. Go up, type 0.4. Repeat on the vertical dimension over here on the right. Linear quadrant. And pick this point up here. So this edge right here, pick that edge. Now move it to the right. Should have 1.09 distance. Hover where there's one point. Track it out to the right. Type 0.4. Now that's all the farther we're going to go with this little view right here. We could add our overall dimensions. We could add a few other dimensions, but for now, we've accomplished our task. I taught you how to add a diameter dimension, and then just as important, I taught you how to add these location dimensions for all of this. Now, before I get away from this part, how many of these diameter holes of 0.5 do we have? Correct, we have 3. So let's edit this diameter dimension to read 3 capital X spacebar. And now we've called that out properly. All right, let's go next. Slide over, we've got 2 more, and they'll go relatively quick. But here we go. Now, in order to use the continue dimension tool, the command, we need to start with a linear dimension on this part. So what we're going to do is click on linear, Then pick this upper left corner and then this upper right corner here. Track up and type 0.4 inches. Now what we're going to do is we need to continue from this dimension, and we're going to dimension this point, and this point. And all of our dimension lines will be on the same plane. You can do this several ways. If you loaded up toolbars over here on this side, you can find it on one of the dimensioning toolbar. If you click on annotate here at the top, you can find that you have continue and baseline here. And so you can always select it that way as well. And when you click continue, you can also type dim, D-I-M, continue, and hit enter and it'll show up. So then you're just going to click this point, and this point. Now we do not want to pick the last point. We don't need that dimension. And the book talked about in your notes about tolerance buildup. So we don't need that last one. But what we want to do is, now that we have the dimensions for all of these different features and cutout, what we want to do is add the overall width of the object above these dimensions. So let's do that with linear. We'll go back to linear. Remember to click the object and go over here to the right and click that side of the object. Hover on the 0.88 dimension where there is one point on the dimension line and track it up and type 0.4. Next, we're going to dimension the vertical location of these features. So I'm going to click linear again. I'm going to select the bottom right-hand corner of my view. I'm going to select this end of this feature here, this little cutout. Coming over, track it out, 0.4 to the right. I'm going to continue from this dimension. Now, another way you can continue, if you click this dimension and you hover where you want to continue from and wait, it'll pop up this shortcut menu and you can hit continue, and then you're going to select that one right there. That's another way that you can continue dimensions. So let's make sure that those two dimensions are in the vertical. Then we're going to add one more, and that's going to be the overall height of this object. Linear. Bottom right, up and to the left. Find the dimension line where there's one point, track out to the right, type 0.4. And then this view is completely dimensioned as it should be. Last one, baseline dimensioning. Now, just like with continued dimensioning, we need a linear dimension to continue from or baseline from. So let's click linear and add the dimension in this upper left feature using your skills and techniques that you've learned so far. Next, you're going to start the baseline option. You can choose it from this menu. You can choose it from your toolbar. You can type dim baseline, or you can continue, you can click here and you can click baseline dimension, okay? However you want to do it, start it, and then move your mouse down to this point. And you'll notice that it starts to baseline for you. Click, click, click. When you do, It'll place all of those dimensions automatically for you. Let's go vertical. What we're going to do is we're going to click a linear dimension again. We're going to click the bottom right corner of this view. We're going to click this corner of the cutout. Place your dimension to the right. And then start baseline dimension. And click the remaining features here and there. So this concludes this demonstration of how to properly place dimensions based on all of these requirements in the book or the PowerPoint as shown on the screen. None of these standards is because Mr. Turner said so, or because anybody else said so. It's because we're just trying to meet the ANSI standards of placing dimensions. So I'm going to go ahead and conclude this video, and good luck. And if you have any questions, let me know.